You must take this to the Duke. No one else can see it. They are coming.
I knew something was wrong the moment Prince Louis slipped the note into my hand. It happened just after midnight inside Windsor Hall. Most of the palace had already gone quiet. The royal staff finished their duties hours earlier, and only a few guards remained stationed across the east corridor near the children's rooms. I was preparing to switch shifts when I noticed Louis standing alone outside Princess Charlotte's bedroom, still awake. Still wearing pajamas. At first, I assumed he couldn't sleep, but then he walked directly toward me without saying a word. His face looked pale, terrified, and before I could kneel down to ask what was wrong, he quietly pushed a folded piece of paper into my hand, then whispered, "Please don't let her fall asleep." My stomach dropped immediately because Louis was shaking, not crying, shaking. I opened the paper instantly. 3 words written in uneven handwriting. "Don't let Charlotte sleep tonight." I looked back at Louis. "Who told you to write this?" He hesitated for several seconds, then quietly answered, "She did." Before I could ask anything else, Charlotte suddenly screamed from inside the bedroom. Not a frightened scream, a painful one. Every guard in the corridor moved immediately. I entered the room first. Princess Charlotte was sitting upright in bed, gasping for breath, while Princess Kate tried calming her beside her. The room looked chaotic. Water spilled across the nightstand. Medicine bottles knocked onto the floor. And Charlotte looked completely terrified. The moment she saw Louis standing behind me near the doorway, she shouted, "You weren't supposed to tell them." The entire room froze. Even Prince William, who arrived seconds later, stopped speaking the moment he heard that. Charlotte immediately looked away afterward, almost like she regretted saying it. Princess Kate gently touched her shoulder. "Charlotte, what's happening?" But Charlotte only whispered one sentence, "If I fall asleep again, she comes back." Nobody understood what she meant. At least not yet. That was the moment palace protocol officially collapsed. Normally, royal medical situations remained private until approved by senior staff. But none of the guards cared anymore. Charlotte looked genuinely unwell, and Louis was terrified of losing her. Prince William ordered palace doctors upstairs immediately while the rest of Windsor Hall quietly woke around us. But things became stranger over the next hour. Every time Charlotte started drifting toward sleep, she panicked violently. Her pulse spiked. Her breathing became unstable. Once, she grabbed my arm so tightly it nearly hurt. Then whispered, "Don't let me see her again." The doctors assumed exhaustion at first. Night terrors. Stress. Until Charlotte suddenly described something she couldn't possibly know. A woman standing beside her bed. Long dark coat, wet hair, and a silver ring shaped like a swan. The room fell silent instantly because Princess Kate slowly began crying the moment Charlotte mentioned the ring. I looked toward Prince William. He had gone completely pale. That was when I realized this wasn't random. Charlotte was describing someone real. Later that night, while doctors remained inside the bedroom, Prince William quietly pulled me aside into the corridor. His voice stayed calm, but barely. "There was an incident years ago," he said quietly, "near the lake." I waited. William stared toward Charlotte's door before continuing. "A palace employee died after trying to rescue Charlotte during winter." I felt cold immediately, because suddenly pieces started connecting. The nightmares, the fear of sleeping, the woman beside the bed. William explained that Charlotte had been very young at the time, too young to fully understand what happened. But shortly before the employee died in hospital, she reportedly whispered something strange to Charlotte. Nobody knew what. And afterward, Charlotte stopped sleeping alone for nearly a year. Eventually the memories faded, until recently. I looked back toward the bedroom. "Why now?" William didn't answer immediately, then quietly said, "Tomorrow is the anniversary of her death." That was the first moment all night I truly understood why Louis was terrified. This wasn't just about nightmares. Charlotte believed if she fell asleep, she would relive that night again. Around 3 a.m., palace doctors recommended sedatives after Charlotte's condition worsened from exhaustion. But the second Charlotte heard the word sleep, she broke down completely. "No, you can't make me sleep." She started crying uncontrollably while Louis hugged her tightly from beside. The bed, even several guards outside the room, looked shaken listening to it. Because for the first time, Princess Charlotte didn't sound royal at all. She sounded like a frightened child, begging someone to understand her. Then came the moment none of us expected. Louis quietly reached into his pocket and pulled out a small folded drawing, a picture of Charlotte standing beside a lake holding hands with a woman wearing a silver ring. At the top, Louis had written, "She saved you once. She wouldn't hurt you." The room went completely silent. Charlotte stared at the drawing for several seconds. Then finally her breathing slowed, not because the fear disappeared, but because Louis stayed beside her the entire night, refusing to let go of her hand. And somehow, that mattered more than any doctor inside Windsor Hall. Just before sunrise, Charlotte finally fell asleep naturally for the first time in nearly 2 days. No screaming, no panic. Only silence. Princess Kate quietly cried beside the bed while Prince William stared out the palace windows without speaking. And honestly, none of us guards spoke much afterward either, because sometimes inside Windsor Hall, the people who save the royal family are not always the ones wearing crowns. Sometimes they're just the ones who refuse to leave your side when you're afraid. By morning, Windsor Hall looked peaceful again. The doctors quietly left the corridor. The palace staff returned to work. And official schedules continued as if nothing had happened during the night. But everyone inside Windsor Hall knew something had changed, especially Prince William. I remember seeing him standing alone outside Charlotte's bedroom just after sunrise. Not speaking, not moving, just watching his daughter sleep peacefully while Louis remained curled beside her, refusing to leave. And honestly, I think that was the moment William finally realized how much fear Charlotte had been carrying alone. Because sometimes the strongest people inside a palace are not the ones giving orders. Sometimes they're simply the ones brave enough to admit they're afraid. Later that afternoon, Charlotte quietly asked Louis why he gave the note to the guards. Louis looked down for a moment before answering, "Because I thought if I lost you, everyone here would pretend to be strong instead of helping you." Nobody in the room knew what to say after that. Not even Prince William. And somehow, those words stayed with me longer than anything else that night. Because behind all the cameras, ceremonies, and royal titles, they were still just a family terrified of losing each other. If you enjoyed this emotional royal drama, let us know your thoughts below. Do you think Louis did the right thing by breaking royal protocol to save Charlotte? And if you were there that night, would you have let Charlotte fall asleep? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more emotional royal stories, hidden palace dramas, and untold moments from inside Windsor Hall.